Now, the 2014 murder of Bafana Bafana goalkeeper Senzo Meyiwa remains unsolved. This week on eNCA's Sunday Focus, we take a closer look at the trial of those accused of his murder. For the whole hour, I will be joined by reporter Silindelo Masikane as well as Mangoba Mkhunu, and we also have legal experts with us. I'm going to start with Slee, who's in fact here in studio with us. Slee, of course, you've been watching this trial from the beginning, but for those who haven't really seen or had the time to watch it, particularly this week, tell us about the drama that unfolded.
Of course, we know that initially the trial started back in April. It's been a start-stop kind of a situation when it comes to this trial. But when we returned from a very long adjournment on the 30th of May, we of course then saw the continuation of cross-examination of Sergeant Thabo Mosia. He's the forensic investigator who was essentially the first one to collect evidence on the scene. We know that later he was joined by a task team from the provincial office, but he was the one who was on standby that evening. He says he was called just before midnight and arrived just after midnight then at the crime scene, and he has been describing what he's found. But what the defense has really been doing since his cross-examination began is poking holes in terms of the manner in which evidence was collected, the manner in which it was kept, even going as far as accusing officials of planting evidence to frame those that we see on the stand. We started with Advocate Malisa Latefo, who introduced a affidavit that Mosia had deposed in connection with a secondary docket, which we will get to later on. But he had deposed this affidavit in connection with this docket, and in that affidavit he actually concedes to say that he does believe that there may have been a situation where the crime scene was compromised before his arrival, given the amount of time that had gone by. We know that Senzo Meyiwa was shot at around 8 p.m. on the 26th of October. However, forensics only got to the scene basically in the early hours of Monday morning, being the 27th of October. A lot is said to have transpired between that time, and so far what the defense has managed to do is raise questions about whether Sergeant Mosia actually did his job properly. Advocate Zandile Mshololo has even gone as far as to say that she doesn't think he was qualified enough because the degree he obtained in forensics he obtained in 2019, which is years after the actual incident. But let's just take a look at the highlights from this week.
Because kunama statements abantu abashoyo ukuthi babemile lama positions nalama positions basizwe isibhamu sikhala baqhubeka bama kulawo ma positions ayibavumela ukuthi babone umuntu ophumayo nongenayo kakhulu, kepha akekho umuntu waphuma, akekho umuntu owangena. Futhi nesibhamu esasetshenziswa lapha kusona lesi esishoyo abantu basitholile umdlalo lento abayisho ayikho lonto. Futhi omunye umuntu engimdabukelayo lo kuthiwa waka njoba isibhamu ngisi sihamba siyocheckwa lapha la kuthiwa sacheckwa khona isibhamu, ngiyabadabukela nalapha ngoba ba-involve kumanje laba abaphasisile bathi 100% lento iyamesha nalesibhamu. Madoda nonke nina nenze lokho niyaphakathi ngoba lento enisho yamanga. Akho sibhamu esimesha nalesi isibhamu kuyisona esabulala uSenzo, akusona leso sibhamu mhlambe safihlwa noma ke kodwa kusona lesi esikhishwe manje. Wonke umuntu oyesendlini uthi isibhamu esasetshenziswa kwaba yi-38 special bazokushintsha kanjani ke lokho kubhaliwe kuyi-10 men ngoba zonke ezabantu abasendlini bathi kwakuyi-38 special. Bangazodlala ngathi labantu. Lezo yikhulu izona ezathintwa kuqala ngekhathi uSenzo eshona. Okusawumbuzo namanje uthi why kwathintwa lezo yikhulu kuqala engabe kuthintwa i-ambulance ezozama ukusiza umfowethu lapha yana, ngoba uSenzo wayengeka mhlambe futhi wayengekashona uSenzo lapha ukuba zange bayenze lento e-cover up. Ngabe bathinta i-ambulance noma ikhlithi bazame kona ukumphuthumisa noma ngekho right ukuthatha umuntu ungenaho ama skills ukuthatha, kodwa nje bazama umphuthumisa ukuba umphuthumisa ngalesi sikhathi mhlambe wezosinda. Mfethu yabona labantu ababoshiwe ngizwelana nabo nanemndeni yabo ngoba bafakwa kwi-risk, abekho involved, abekho nje involved, bahlangana naleli cala nhlobo. Ngizwelana nabo ngoba bacishe babulawa ngisho emajele. NPA even yabo ledokodo leli lesibili kade yalazi NPA kutyala 2020 yalazi njengoba beqamba amanga ecourt baqambela icourt amanga bathi abalazi bathi balithole nini izolo banamanga manga lawo sifisa ukubona lama 5 suspects ekhululiwe because awekho involved sifuna ukubona wonke amaphoyisa involved kuleli cala ekwenzeni cover up eboshiwe sifuna ukubona bonke abantu ababekhona endlini beboshiwe.
Right, we do have legal expert Ntabisen Dubazana with us also in studio. Thank you very much for your time. You know, with me, I think what Slee was telling me during the week, obviously there's a lot that was said in the trial so far that had a lot of viewers flabbergasted. But in terms of what Malisa Latefo had said, with there being 2 dockets and the state not objecting to this witness that will come forward and say that it was Kelly Khumalo who allegedly killed Senzo Meyiwa with Longwes Twala's gun. I think at some point Slee and I were in agreement that, you know, with Magdalene Munsami for Kelly Khumalo, who said the state was supposed to have actually objected to this alleged evidence because that's not the docket that they're basing their trial on. So now it makes sense why, right?
Yeah, but in any event, even if the state had objected, it would not have been of any consequence, mainly because this is now during cross-examination. So during cross-examination, us as legal practitioners, we have the duty to put forth any evidence that is going yet to come when the defense case starts. So what happens is that we put the version of the accused to the witness before the box to test it and hear the answers from that witness based, versus what our client is going to say when they come into the box. And then if there are any witnesses that are going to be called from the defense side, which also collaborates or rather deals with the issues centered around what this particular witness is talking about, that is also put to the witness who is currently in the box. So even if the state had objected, why would they object? Because this is what I, as the defense attorney, going to bring when it's my turn to now bring my clients to the box and give evidence. But when you talk about this docket that has existed, remember, I think about 4 or 5 months ago, Advocate Tefo Malisela did an interview whereby he went into detail for about 30 minutes about these 2 different dockets. And this is a while before the trial actually started. That should have been the opportunity, at least in my opinion, where the NPA would have taken the grasp and say, okay, guys, let's go find that docket and then join them if necessary prior to the trial starting. But this was not done. And now that is coming in the middle of a trial, it's bringing unnecessary drama to a trial, which it should have been sorted prior to the trial actually commencing.
Help me understand why the state is now bringing this docket forward and giving it to the defense. A lot of people, of course, as South Africans, we have a lot of opinions. A lot of people are saying that the state is blowing the lid off its own case. So, you know, I'm just trying to understand why would they then now bring it. I remember the word used, Slee, in court was that this was a rumored docket. Now the state is showing that actually this docket does exist. Why would they do that to their own case?
I think that's what's baffling us. I think that's why we adjourned on Thursday until tomorrow, because Advocate Mshololo is actually asking that, why was this not disclosed at the time of disclosure? Remember, unlike in civil cases, as in criminal cases, the state has to disclose to us prior to the trial, obviously, and then because we as defense attorneys don't have to disclose, we put versions of the accused to them. So in order for us to prepare our clients for that, we then have to have the full information from the state. Then we go and consult with our clients so that we can prepare a version that we can put to the court. So now if I'm in the middle of cross-examination and you're bringing this docket, I haven't prepared myself or my client for this, how then do you expect me to say that I can proceed with the trial? And now if you're bringing it as evidence, how are you bringing a docket where people are accused as evidence in a trial where people are accused in the same crime? It should have been that it's a joinder of cases prior to the actual trial starting. Now, how are you going to say these people are going to be witnesses for the state when you're actually charging them? So this is the clarity that Advocate Mshololo is asking for from the DPP so that they can explain themselves what is the purpose of this docket being introduced now.
See, let me bring it back to you. I think Ntabiseng actually reminded me of some of what happened in court, the explosive stuff that we heard, particularly from a very emotional Advocate Mshololo, who was basically lambasting the state, and basically telling them that if anyone is to blame for the bungling of this case, it's the state.
She was quite scathing in her remarks to the judge ahead of the adjournment, saying that it's quite strange that at this point, when the trial is underway, all of this information, new information is coming forward that was never disclosed to her in the beginning. In fact, at the beginning of the trial, the state had also submitted new witness statements from a bunch of witnesses that are under witness protection. And even then, that is why we had to adjourn, because Mshololo says, I have to consult, I have to speak to my client, I have to see whether I need to bring in any more witnesses in terms of my defense for my client. But also what we saw this week, Masego, was once more Advocate Malisa Latefo for accused 1 to 4, also bringing up an issue around a trial within a trial. So what we understand is that there are possible confessions that the state has obtained from accused 1 and 2 who actually implicate all 5 of them in this particular crime. But Advocate Latefo is saying we can't actually have these confessions submitted because these confessions rather were basically beaten out of the accused, and at that point the judge did not want to entertain this application any further because Latefo at that point had not filed any formal papers to actually have the court entertain this application. But he, as well as Mshololo, has been very vocal around the fact that they don't believe that the state is actually conducting this trial in an appropriate manner.
Well, on that note, let's take you to a short break, but please don't go anywhere. Of course, there's so much more that we need to look at in terms of this case. We'll also have Manqoba Mchunu, who spoke to the Meyiwa family in KZN, to tell us what they told him. We'll also have 2 other legal experts, as well as Khumalo's lawyer, Magdalene Munsami, so don't go anywhere.